"That's him," the woman said, pointing straight at me. "He's the one who won't leave." The words cut through the quiet Saturday afternoon, just as two Fairmont police cruisers rolled to a stop behind our rented moving truck, their red and blue lights washing across the white garage door of the house my wife and I had closed on 48 hours earlier. I stood in my own driveway with a cardboard box tucked against my hip, smelling fresh paint, cut grass, and the pepperoni pizza getting cold somewhere inside. My wife Rachel was 5 feet behind me. Our 16-year-old daughter Maya had gone completely silent. Ethan, my 11-year-old son, was still holding the little brass key I'd given him that morning, the one I'd told him opened the front door to our new life. Across the driveway stood Linda Whitmore, president of the Oak Ridge Preserve Homeowners Association, gripping a thick blue binder against her chest like it carried federal law instead of neighborhood rules about fences and mailbox colors. Her white Mercedes sat at the curb behind her, spotless enough to reflect the flashing lights. "Officers, thank goodness," she said, moving toward them before either had fully closed his door. "I reported the trespassers. They've been inside the property, and he refuses to cooperate." I didn't answer. Not yet. Officer Jenna Cole approached from the passenger side, while the older officer came around the first cruiser. His radio crackled against the strange silence gathering over the cul-de-sac. Curtains had moved in 3 houses. A garage door across the street stood halfway open. Somebody was watching from behind it. Linda noticed the audience, too. I could see it in the way her shoulders straightened. "Sir," Officer Cole said, calm and professional, "we received a report concerning possible unauthorized entry. Can you keep your hands visible while we sort this out?" I slowly lowered the box onto the driveway. Cardboard scraped against concrete. Of course. Ethan looked at me. That bothered me more than the police lights. He wasn't frightened exactly. He was confused. A kid shouldn't have to wonder why police officers were standing outside the house his parents had just bought. Linda opened her binder. "I can explain everything. I know the homeowners in Oak Ridge, and this family is not." She stopped because the older officer had finally gotten a clear look at my face. His name was Michael Harris. I'd known him for almost 6 years. I watched recognition move across his expression. First concentration, then surprise, then something close to disbelief. "Mr. Mayor," he said. Linda's binder stopped halfway open. Even the pages seemed to go still. I gave Harris a small nod. "Afternoon, Mike." He glanced at the house, then at the moving truck, then back at me. "What are you doing here, sir?" I looked at Linda. 10 seconds earlier she'd been certain I didn't belong within 50 feet of that front door. Now all the color had drained from her face. "Apparently," I said, "I'm trespassing in my new house." 35 minutes earlier, Linda Whitmore had no idea who I was. The problem was, she had already decided exactly what I was. 35 minutes earlier, the only flashing lights on Oak Ridge Drive came from the afternoon sun bouncing off our moving truck. Rachel had the front door propped open with a box-marked kitchen, and the house still carried that sharp mixture of fresh paint, new carpet, and lemon cleaner that every empty home seems to have. We had closed on Thursday. By Saturday, we were surrounded by cardboard, packing tape, pizza boxes, and arguments over bedrooms. It felt wonderfully ordinary. That was exactly what I wanted. My name is Daniel Brooks. I was 47 years old, married to Rachel for 19 years, father to Maya and Ethan, and for the previous 4 years, mayor of Fairmont, North Carolina. Before politics, I spent more than a decade practicing municipal law. I knew zoning codes, public records, property disputes, and the strange ways ordinary paperwork could become powerful when somebody actually bothered to read it. But that afternoon, none of that was supposed to matter. I was not wearing a suit. There was no city seal behind me, no microphone in front of me, no staff member carrying a schedule. I had on faded jeans, brown work boots, and an old navy polo with a streak of white paint near the pocket. Rachel had laughed when I tried carrying 2 boxes at once and nearly dropped one on the porch. "Mr. Mayor," she said, defeated by kitchen appliances. Public service did not prepare me for this, I told her. Ethan ran past us holding the brass front door key above his head like he had won a trophy. Maya sat on the tailgate of the truck, labeling boxes with a black marker while music played quietly from her phone. We had chosen Oak Ridge Preserve because it seemed peaceful. Mature maples lined the sidewalks. The houses sat behind broad lawns, most of them on lots close to half an acre. You could hear sprinklers ticking somewhere down the block and smell charcoal from somebody's backyard grill. Rachel loved the natural light in the kitchen. Maya liked that her new room faced the trees. Ethan cared about exactly one thing: the basketball hoop beside the garage. I cared that, for once, my family might have a place where my job did not enter the room before I did. That was why there were no campaign signs, no official vehicle, and no announcement about where we had moved. The purchase had been handled quietly through our attorney and real estate agent. I wanted neighbors to meet Daniel first, not Mayor Brooks. The closing folder was still lying on the dashboard of my sport utility vehicle, thick with signatures, insurance papers, and the recorded deed. I remember seeing it through the windshield when I walked back toward the truck. I almost grabbed it. Instead, I reached for another box. That tiny decision mattered later. So did the sold sign Rachel had pulled from the front lawn and leaned behind the garage. So did Maya's phone. At the time, they were just ordinary objects scattered through an ordinary Saturday. Then I heard tires slow against the pavement. A white Mercedes sport utility vehicle rolled past our driveway, stopped, backed up about 20 feet, and parked at the curb. The engine went quiet. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out carrying a thick blue binder. She looked at our moving truck, then at Rachel, then at my children. Finally, she looked directly at me. She did not wave. She did not smile. She started walking up my driveway. She stopped about 10 feet from me, close enough that I caught the clean floral edge of her perfume over the smell of cardboard and fresh-cut grass. Up close, she looked prepared for a meeting nobody else knew was happening. Cream slacks, pale blue blouse, polished loafers, sunglasses pushed into perfectly arranged blonde hair. The blue binder rested against her left arm. "Can I help you?" she asked. The question sounded neighborly. Her eyes did not. They moved past me toward the open front door, then to Rachel carrying a lamp through the foyer. "We are good, thank you," I said. "Just trying to finish before dinner." She glanced at the moving truck. "Who gave you the access code?" That was the first question that made me stop smiling. Oak Ridge had a decorative gate at the main entrance, but homeowners received their codes at closing. "Our real estate agent," I said. "And why would your real estate agent have an owner code?" Rachel stepped onto the porch and gave me the look married couples develop after 19 years, the one that can ask an entire question without making a sound. I set my box down. "Because we own the house." The woman blinked once. Then she gave a short laugh, almost polite. "No. I mean, who are you working for?" "Nobody." "Are you contractors?" "No. Movers." I looked at the 20-foot rental truck behind me, then at my paint-streaked shirt. "Not very good ones." Rachel almost smiled. The woman did not. She opened the binder. Plastic sleeves whispered against each other as she flipped through pages. "I am Linda Whitmore, president of the Oak Ridge Preserve Homeowners Association. I know the homeowners here." There was something carefully chosen about the way she said homeowners. "Then you can add 4 more names to the list," I said. "Daniel and Rachel Brooks. Our children are Maya and Ethan." She stared at me for a second too long. "This property changed hands recently. Thursday. I was not notified. I cannot help you with that." Her fingers tightened around the binder. "All ownership transfers are supposed to be coordinated with the association." That sounded official enough to intimidate someone who had never read closing documents for a living. Unfortunately for Linda, I had spent years reading documents designed to sound more powerful than they were. The association received the required closing information through the title company. I said, "If your internal records have not been updated, you should probably check with whoever maintains them." Her smile thinned. "Do you have proof?" Behind her, a sprinkler clicked 3 times and swept a silver arc across the lawn. I could hear Ethan bouncing a basketball beside the garage. Thump, thump, thump. "Yes," I said. "Inside." Linda shook her head immediately. "I would prefer that nobody enter the property until I verify this." I looked at the open doorway. Rachel looked at me. "Linda, we have been entering the property all afternoon because it is our home." She pulled a phone from her purse. Anyone can say that. Maya had stopped labeling boxes. I noticed her watching now. Linda tapped her screen. "I am contacting neighborhood security." "You are welcome to verify the sale," I said. "The county record will do that. I know how to protect this community, Mr. Brooks." She finally used my name, but somehow it sounded less like recognition than accusation. I glanced through my windshield at the closing folder on the dashboard. The deed was less than 30 feet away. I could have ended the misunderstanding in under a minute. Then Linda raised the phone to her ear and said, "There are unauthorized people inside the Henderson property." That was when I realized she was not trying to find out whether I belonged there. She had already decided that I did not. The neighborhood security dispatcher must have asked Linda a question she did not like, because her mouth tightened and she turned slightly away from me. "No, I do not recognize them," she said into the phone. "There are 4 people here, and they have been going in and out of the house." I watched Rachel stop beside the porch railing. Maya had moved closer to her brother. Ethan's basketball had gone quiet. "Tell them we have the deed," Rachel said. Linda lifted one finger without looking at her, the universal gesture for wait. That small motion bothered me more than it should have. This woman had walked onto our property less than 5 minutes earlier, and somehow she was already treating my wife like an interruption. "Linda," I said, "you have been told who we are. You can verify the sale with one phone call." She lowered her phone. "Security cannot confirm a new owner in their system. That sounds like a problem with their system." Her eyes hardened. "Until this is resolved, I need your family to remain outside." "No." One word. Calm. Clear. She looked almost surprised that I had said it. "Excuse me. My family is not standing in the street while you update your records." The afternoon air felt warmer now. Somewhere behind us, packing tape ripped from a dispenser. Our movers had stopped carrying boxes and were pretending not to listen. Linda glanced toward them, then toward 2 neighbors who had appeared on the sidewalk across the street. Her voice changed. It became louder, more official. "Mr. Brooks, you are refusing a reasonable request from the association. You are asking the owners of this house to leave their own property. Ownership has not been established." I walked to my sport utility vehicle, opened the passenger door, and pulled the closing folder from the dashboard. The paper inside still smelled faintly of printer ink. I found the recorded deed and held it out. "Here." Linda looked down at it, but did not take it. "Anyone can print something." For a second, I thought I had misheard her. Rachel did too. I could tell by the way her eyebrows lifted. "You asked for proof," I said. "That is proof." Linda took half a step backward. "I am not qualified to authenticate legal documents." "Then why did you ask to see them?" Silence. The sprinkler across the street clicked again. Linda looked at the growing audience, and I watched pride make the decision that common sense should have made for her. She raised her phone again. This time she did not call neighborhood security. "I am contacting the police." Maya quietly pulled her own phone from her pocket. I saw the camera lens turn toward us. I did not tell her to stop. Linda paced toward the curb as the emergency dispatcher answered. "Yes, I need officers at Oak Ridge Preserve," she said. "There are unknown individuals occupying a residence." She paused. "Yes, they are refusing to leave." I felt Rachel move beside me. "She knows our names," she whispered. I nodded. Linda continued. "The man is becoming confrontational." I looked down at the deed in my hand. My voice had never risen. I had not moved toward her. I had answered every question she asked. But somewhere between her first call and this one, I had changed from a homeowner she did not recognize into a threat she needed the police to handle. That was when Maya spoke quietly behind me. "Dad, I am recording this." I looked at my daughter, then at Linda, still describing me to the dispatcher. "Keep recording," I said. The dispatcher must have told Linda officers were on the way, because she ended the call with a satisfied little nod and slipped the phone into her purse. Then she walked back toward us like the next 10 minutes belonged to her. "They asked everyone to remain where they are," she said. "No," I replied. "They asked you to remain available because you made the report." Her expression tightened. "You seem very familiar with police procedure." "I am familiar with a lot of procedures." That answer irritated her. I could see it in the way her fingers pressed into the blue binder. Rachel touched my arm and quietly asked if we should take Ethan inside. I looked at our son. He was staring toward the entrance of Oak Ridge, waiting for something he had never expected to see on moving day. "Stay here with me," I said. I hated saying it, but I wanted all 4 of us visible when the officers arrived. No confusion, no sudden movement through the house. Nothing Linda could reshape into another story. Maya kept her phone at chest level, recording without saying a word. Linda noticed. "Young lady, you should not be filming me." Maya looked at me. "You are standing in our driveway," I said. Linda opened her mouth, then closed it. Across the street, another front door opened. A gray-haired man stepped onto his porch holding a coffee mug. 2 houses down, A woman stopped walking her golden retriever and pretended to check its leash. The neighborhood was becoming an audience, and Linda seemed to draw confidence from it. I have been president of this association for 7 years, she announced. I know who belongs in Oak Ridge. The sentence hung there longer than she intended. Rachel went still beside me. Maya's phone did not move. I folded the deed once and placed it carefully on the hood of my vehicle. You might want to think about how that sounded, I said. Do not twist my words, Linda replied quickly. I mean registered homeowners. I gave you our names. Names do not prove ownership. I gave you the deed, which I cannot authenticate. Then you called the police. Her cheeks flushed. Because you refused to cooperate. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about Ethan hearing this. The boy had spent all morning choosing where his basketball trophies would go. Now he was watching a stranger explain why his family might not belong in the house where he had already picked his bedroom. Then I heard the sirens. Faint at first, a rising electronic wail beyond the trees. Linda heard them too. Her posture changed instantly. She straightened her blouse, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and opened the binder to a page she had marked with a yellow tab. The sirens grew louder. Maya shifted closer to Rachel. I could feel my own heartbeat, steady but heavy, under my shirt. I had one sentence that could have changed everything. I could have told Linda exactly who I was. I could have told her who would be stepping out of those cruisers and why at least one of them would probably recognize me. I said nothing, not because I wanted to embarrass her, because I wanted to know what she would do when she believed I had no title worth respecting. 2 police cruisers turned onto Oak Ridge Drive. Linda smiled. She actually smiled. Red and blue lights slid across the white Mercedes, the moving truck, and the blue binder in her hands. She stepped toward the curb before the first cruiser had completely stopped. Thank goodness, she called. That is him. He is the one who will not leave. Officer Jenna Cole approached me first and calmly asked me to keep my hands visible while they sorted things out. I lowered the box I had picked up moments earlier and answered, of course. Then Michael Harris came around the other cruiser, looked past Linda, and saw my face. The confidence disappeared from Linda's expression before he even spoke. Mr. Mayor? Harris said. I nodded. Afternoon, Mike. Linda froze with the binder half open. Harris looked from me to the house. What are you doing here, sir? I glanced at my deed resting on the hood, then at the woman who had refused to touch it. Apparently, I said, trying to prove where I live. For 3 full seconds, nobody said anything. The police radio crackled softly from Officer Harris's shoulder. A sprinkler hissed across the lawn behind us. And somewhere inside my house, the refrigerator made that hollow mechanical hum new appliances make in empty rooms. Linda stared at Harris as if she were waiting for him to correct himself. He did not. This is your house, Mr. Mayor? He asked. Rachel and I closed on Thursday. I reached toward the hood slowly, making sure Officer Cole could see exactly what I was doing, and lifted the deed. I tried showing this to Mrs. Whitmore. Linda found her voice. Officer, there has obviously been a misunderstanding. I was never informed that Mayor Brooks was moving into Oak Ridge. That sentence landed harder than anything she had said before. Not because she finally believed me, because now I understood what had changed her mind. It was not the deed. It was not my wife standing on our porch. It was not our children carrying boxes into their bedrooms. It was 2 words spoken by a police officer. Mr. Mayor. Harris looked at the document, then handed it to Cole. Can you verify this through dispatch? Absolutely. Cole stepped toward her cruiser. Linda moved closer to me, lowering her voice. Mr. Mayor, if I had known who you were, I certainly would have handled this differently. I looked at her. The blue binder was closed now. That is the problem. She blinked. Excuse me. You should not have needed to know who I was. Rachel folded her arms beside me. Maya kept recording. Ethan watched my face. I chose every word carefully because my son was listening. I told you my name. I told you we bought the house. I showed you the deed. You refused to look at it. Then you told the police I was confrontational. I was protecting the neighborhood. From what? Linda glanced toward the neighbors watching from their lawns. From unauthorized occupancy. You had no evidence of unauthorized occupancy. Her face reddened. I made a judgment call. Harris shifted his weight but stayed silent. I appreciated that. I did not want him defending me because I was mayor. I wanted the facts to do it. Officer Cole returned less than 2 minutes later. Ownership confirmed, she said. County record lists Daniel Aaron Brooks and Rachel Brooks as the current owners. Rachel released a slow breath. Ethan looked toward the house as if someone had finally returned it to him. Linda gave a nervous laugh. Well, there we are. Administrative confusion. I apologize, Mr. Mayor. There it was again. Mr. Mayor. Not Mr. Brooks. Not Daniel. Not neighbor. The title had become her emergency exit. I looked at Cole. A small green light glowed on her body camera. Officer Cole, is your camera recording? Yes, sir. It has been active since arrival. Good. Please do not turn it off on my account. Linda's eyes moved from the camera to Maya's phone. Is all of this really necessary? Yes, I said. Because I do not want special treatment. Harris nodded once. Understood. I handed the deed back to Rachel. Document the call exactly as you would for anyone else. What was reported, what you observed, what was verified. Everything. Linda's smile disappeared. For the first time that afternoon, she seemed less worried about who I was than about what she had said before she knew. The officers finished taking basic information, and the neighbors slowly drifted back toward their houses. The flashing lights shut off. Color returned to the street. It should have ended there. I wanted it to end there. Then, just before Harris returned to his cruiser, Ethan tugged lightly at my shirt. Dad, yeah, buddy. He looked toward Linda's white Mercedes. Why did she think we were not supposed to be here? I had spent years answering difficult questions in council chambers. That one left me silent. And, before I could find an answer, I noticed the gray-haired man across the street still standing on his porch. He was no longer watching Linda. He was watching me, and the expression on his face told me this had happened before. The gray-haired man waited until the cruisers disappeared around the corner before he crossed the street. He moved slowly, carrying the same coffee mug I had seen from the driveway, though whatever was inside had probably gone cold. Linda was still near her Mercedes, speaking rapidly into her phone now, her voice low enough that I could not make out the words. The man glanced toward her before stopping at the edge of my property. Mr. Brooks, he asked. Daniel is fine. He nodded. Thomas Reed. I live across the street. We shook hands. His palm was rough, his grip careful. Welcome to Oak Ridge, he said, then looked toward Linda. I wish that had gone differently. So do I. Thomas hesitated. His eyes moved toward Maya, then Ethan, then back to me. You should know something. Linda closed her car door harder than necessary and drove away. The Mercedes rolled past us without slowing. Thomas watched until it turned the corner. You were not the first. The sentence was quiet, but it changed the temperature of the afternoon. Rachel stepped closer. What do you mean? Thomas rubbed his thumb along the rim of his mug. About 8 months ago, Linda called security on a delivery driver. Said he was wandering around looking into houses. He was trying to find an address where the numbers were hidden behind a tree. He paused. Before that, there was a contractor working on the Miller place. Linda reported him because his truck was parked near the clubhouse. Was he authorized to be there? I asked. Completely. The Millers hired him. Thomas looked embarrassed, even though none of it was his doing. There was also a family renting the house near the pond. Legal lease. Board approved. Linda kept challenging their guests at the gate. Eventually they moved. Rachel's expression changed. Not surprise anymore. Recognition. Why did nobody stop her? Thomas gave a tired little laugh. That is complicated. Usually means nobody wanted to be. Next, I said. He looked at me and nodded. Pretty much. That evening, after the movers left, our new house finally became quiet. The smell of pizza had replaced the smell of fresh paint. Cardboard boxes formed uneven towers along the hallway. Ethan had fallen asleep on the living room couch, with one sneaker still on. Maya sat at the kitchen island, transferring her video to my laptop. I could hear the soft clicking of keys while Rachel opened cabinets looking for coffee mugs we had apparently packed in the wrong box. I got almost everything, Maya said. I pulled up a stool beside her. The video started with Linda speaking to the dispatcher. Her voice came through cleanly. Unknown individuals. Refusing to leave. Becoming confrontational. Then my own voice answered from somewhere off camera, steady and low. Rachel placed a mug beside me. That does not sound like confusion, she said. No. At 8:43 that night, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and found Thomas holding a manila folder thick enough to bend under its own weight. I kept copies, he said. Meeting minutes. Complaint emails. Security reports people forwarded to me. I used to be board treasurer. I looked down at the folder. Several pages had yellow notes attached. Dates. Addresses. Names. Why keep all this? I asked. Thomas stared past me toward the dark street. Because eventually somebody was going to need it. I carried the folder to the kitchen table and opened it beneath the warm pendant light. The first report was 2 years old. Then another. Then another. Different names. Different addresses. Same language. Suspicious person. Unauthorized visitor. Community safety concern. I felt the paper drag beneath my fingertips as I turned each page. This was no longer about what Linda had done to my family that afternoon. The question was how many families had experienced the same thing when nobody important happened to be standing in the driveway. By Monday morning, the manila folder had become a stack of evidence spread across my kitchen table. I had barely touched the moving boxes. Rachel brought me coffee while I arranged reports by date, and the bitter smell mixed with fresh lumber from the bookshelf I still had not assembled. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Linda had used the same phrases again and again. Suspicious visitor, unverified contractor, unauthorized occupant, community safety concern, different people, same language. I knew enough about government to know what I could not do next. I could not walk into City Hall, put my title behind a complaint involving my own family, and pretend that was justice. So I called the city attorney and requested an independent review of the police interaction, including the emergency call and body camera footage. Then I stepped away from it. No favors. No private instructions. No mayoral pressure. If the facts were strong, they did not need my thumb on the scale. Oak Ridge was different. I was a homeowner there, and the association belonged to its members. Thomas helped us contact residents whose names appeared in his records. Some declined to speak. I understood. Others had been waiting years for somebody to ask. A Latino contractor named Carlos Mendoza still had the security report from the afternoon Linda questioned him outside a house he had been hired to renovate. A black delivery driver named Andre Lewis had saved an email from his employer documenting a complaint after Linda accused him of circling the neighborhood. The family near the pond had moved 11 months earlier, but they forwarded correspondence showing their approved lease had been repeatedly challenged anyway. By Thursday, the blue binder Linda carried everywhere no longer looked like authority. It looked like a trail. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 7 o'clock. The clubhouse smelled like coffee, furniture polish, and nervous people. Every folding chair was occupied. Residents stood along the back wall. Linda sat at the front table with her blue binder perfectly centered in front of her. I deliberately sat in the third row beside Rachel. No suit. No city staff. No reserved seat. Just another homeowner. When public comments opened, Thomas went first. Then Carlos. Then 2 residents I had never met. Each told a different story that somehow sounded familiar. When my turn came, I carried one folder to the front and placed it on the table. I am not here as mayor, I said. I am here as Daniel Brooks, homeowner. Linda folded her hands. This entire situation has been distorted by misunderstandings. I placed the deed beside the printed timeline. Then Maya's video transcript. Then the police incident record. You asked me for proof of ownership, I said. I gave it to you. You refused to examine it. Linda leaned toward the microphone. I was protecting this community. The room went quiet. I looked at the reports Thomas had saved. From whom? She did not answer. Because that is the question these records raise. Who exactly did you believe this community needed protection from? Someone in the back whispered, then silence returned. Linda reached for her binder, but one of the board members stopped her. We have read the complaints, Linda. That was the moment her expression changed. She had spent years using paperwork to control the room. Now the paperwork was speaking without her. The board voted that night to remove her as president pending the results of a formal review. They also suspended the informal security practices she had created and required written verification before future reports could be made in the association's name. Linda closed her binder slowly. The plastic sleeves made the same soft whisper I had heard in my driveway. Only this time, nobody mistook that sound for authority. A month later, the sound I remembered most was not a siren. It was the clean metallic click of a socket wrench turning the final bolt on our new mailbox. Ethan held the post steady while I tightened the bracket beside the driveway, both of us wearing work gloves, even though he kept complaining that his were too big. Saturday sunlight filtered through the maple trees, and somewhere down Oak Ridge Drive a lawn mower hummed behind a fence. The air smelled like warm grass and fresh mulch. Normal neighborhood smells. I had learned to appreciate normal. The association review had finished the week before. Linda was permanently removed from the presidency, and the board adopted written procedures requiring actual facts before association. Representatives could report someone as an unauthorized resident or visitor. Complaints now had to be documented. Ownership questions had to be checked against records before escalation. The city review found that Officers Harris and Cole had handled the call appropriately once they arrived, and the original emergency call remained part of the official record. No special treatment. No quiet disappearance because my name happened to appear on the mayor's office door. That mattered to me. Thomas joined the new Neighborhood Standards Committee, although he complained that retirement was becoming suspiciously similar to employment. Carlos Mendoza received an apology from the association. The family who had lived near the pond sent Rachel an email saying they wished these changes had happened 2 years earlier. That sentence stayed with me. Justice can repair a rule. It cannot return every afternoon somebody spent wondering whether they were welcome where they had every right to be. Linda's white Mercedes disappeared from its usual spot a few weeks after the meeting. I heard she had stepped away from all association business. I never asked where she went. I did not need her humiliation. I needed the system she had used to become harder for the next person to misuse. Ethan handed me another bolt. Dad, yeah. Why did you not just tell her? I stopped turning the wrench. Tell her what? He gave me the look children give adults when they know the adult is avoiding the obvious. That you were mayor. I sat back on my heels. The brass house key hung from his belt loop now, the same key he had been holding when the police arrived. It flashed in the sunlight when he moved. Because someday, I said, you might be standing in a driveway where nobody knows your job, your name, or anything important about you. He listened carefully. And if you say the house is yours, then you should be given the same fair chance to prove it as anyone else. He looked toward our front door. Even if you are not mayor, I smiled. Especially then. Maya came outside carrying 2 glasses of lemonade and immediately told us the mailbox was leaning. Rachel followed behind her, insisting it was not leaning and that Maya had inherited my talent for criticizing construction without actually helping. For the first time since moving day, all 4 of us laughed in that driveway. I looked at the house, the garage, the basketball hoop, and the sold sign still leaning behind the garage because I had somehow never gotten around to throwing it away. All those ordinary things Linda had looked past while trying to decide whether we belonged. I tightened the final bolt. Click. One small sound. Final. Certain. I had spent years around people who thought power meant having the loudest voice in the room, the biggest title on the door, or enough authority to make everyone else step aside. They were wrong. The best kind of authority has limits. The best kind of justice does not depend on whether a police officer recognizes your face. Justice was never hearing someone call me Mr. Mayor. Justice was making sure the next father standing in his own driveway would not need a title at all.